of about an hour from New York City. That's where I am. Let you guys.
Okay, hold on.
So actually, we're in North Carolina right now. We're in Wilmington, North Carolina, but we moved from Monmouth County. So my office is still in Manhattan and stuff, but we've been remote for quite a bit now. So we moved down here.
Oh, wow. So you go to Manhattan, you actually work in Manhattan or worked in Manhattan?
So the office is still there. Yep. So I'll probably, like, once it opens back up, like head back once a month or something like that. But yeah.
Cool, cool.
Mhm.
Josh.
We're in Loganville, Georgia. It's about an hour east of Atlanta. I work in Atlanta, so.
Cool. Louis.
I'm in a small town called Brossard, which is a suburb of Montreal, Quebec, Canada.
Oh,
So, 10 minutes out of Montreal.
awesome.
Wow.
I mean, we really have a wide variety of places, I mean, covered here, which is great too. Hi, Ashley.
Hello. So we're live. I did it. So everybody, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you are. This is a special edition of Dyslexia Coffee Talk, where I'm going to bow out of this conversation and I'm going to let the dads take over. And you've got 4 really powerhouse dads today. You've got Josh Taylor, Louis Russo, Sean Hager, and you will be moderated today by David Sussman. And with that, y'all have fun. I'm going to silence the mom voice and let the dads take over.
Silencing the mom voice is not easy.
No.
And as far as dads are concerned, it's not recommended. We're often like, no, don't do that. But when you think about, you mentioned that you got these 4 powerhouse dads, and you mentioned our names. And that's what's most important, because we have names, but you don't know us. Nobody knows us, but we represent all the dads out there. I guarantee you that the experiences that we've gone through, and we each have children at different stages, and I'm sure we'll end up hearing about that, of the process of the journey. You know, we all represent all the dads. So our names don't matter, but our stories do. You know,
That's right.
That's really what it's all about. But what I'd like to hear, the first thing I'd like to hear from the dads, if you think about this voice that we hear about, this mom's voice and this dad's voice, and you know, it's okay to come out strong or hold back. You know, we don't have any rules on what we say here, you know, other than keeping it clean, which for dads might be a challenge at times. But I will say, like, what would you describe in your house, the mom voice versus the dad voice? How would you go about describing that? And I'll share mine at the end. Anybody want to jump in?
From a standpoint of like the dyslexic experience, or just like?
Yes, the experience with your child as it relates to the journey that you're on with dyslexia.
Yeah, I mean, I can start. You know, I think like I took a very initially sort of passive view that the schools would figure a lot of the stuff out and kind of follow a lot of the guidance that the schools were prepared to give. And then my wife Holly had a much stronger sort of view of it, that we really needed to own a lot of the process and really have an agenda and a vision for where we wanted our son Colt to be. And then she kind of dove in head first and did like a ton of research and understanding the dyslexic mind and how to nurture it and how to really get the best situation and education and accommodations for Colt. And it was through her process and education that I started to become more educated. And once I became more educated, I took a more active role in understanding things as well. And she kind of drove a lot of the stuff in the beginning. And then one of the things we found through our process was, if we do a lot of the communications together and we really show a unified front, like with the schools and with like advocating for him and his needs, that what we're able to achieve was pretty powerful, really. But it took me a little bit to kind of get on the same page. Frankly, it's a bit embarrassing to say it, but
No.
that was a lot of our journey in the early stages, for sure.
Well, in your case, Sean, your wife led, and then realized that together you've got the strength of a team. But we needed that, and you needed that, and she did that. The first part she did was educating herself, which obviously, that's an important piece of the process. Josh or Lewis?
My
yeah.
story is, sorry,
No, you're
Josh.
fine.
Go ahead, please.
No, you're fine. Go ahead.
My story is very similar to Sean's in that I didn't know much about dyslexia when Benjamin was first diagnosed. My wife, being a resource teacher and with experience in this field, she really took the reins, and I thank God that she did, because she was able to fight for Benjamin at our school, and it was obvious that the school, Benjamin's school, wasn't providing the service that he needed in order to achieve success. If it was on my shoulders alone, I would not have been able to do what we have done for him. So it took me a little bit of time before I got onto the bandwagon. So eventually it became both my wife and I a fight for my son, and no one else will fight. No one else will fight for them, because many schools and teachers may not necessarily know how to recognize dyslexics. They don't recognize the symptoms. They just feel that the student may be slow or maybe not trying hard enough, and it starts and ends there. So we as parents have to fight for our kids in order for them to really achieve what they can achieve, because we know what dyslexics are. They have so many abilities, but you have to fight for them to get to recognize those abilities, and for the schools to recognize those abilities, and for them to shine in their own way. So quickly, that was our journey.
Lewis, you talk about how the schools, you find that they still don't quite know how to not only handle it, but how to respond, and their definition of what they see and how they portray that. It's amazing how little has changed from, the fact that all of these issues have been out in front of the school systems for so long, that you would say that today. My journey was 10 years ago, with longer than that, with my son Jake, and it was the same issues back then about defining behaviors as defining learning disabilities as behavioral issues. Such a bizarre thing to watch happen, and then to consider the fact that it still goes on, to me, is like, how are we going to learn? How do they learn? How can they get to the point where they don't do that? But you mentioned something when you said if it was on your shoulders alone, you would not have been able to get there. That's deep stuff. That's meaningful. And it really puts our wives on a pedestal, from that standpoint, because we can be so strong, and we are strong in so many ways. But when it came to this issue, it has nothing to do with our desire to solve it. But it has to do with, how do we move this thing forward? What do we do? It's like our frustration, almost like we lack the words at times, and we lack the process. It's like, what do we do? Let's just do something. And we need that guidance from our wives, and that's really wonderful. So that's great to hear that, Lewis, that you got that.
One of the things that I've noticed as well is that, like, when you talk about the journey and the process and the fight, like, even, for me, what was eye-opening is you kind of meet these hurdles and thresholds, like, you get a certain amount of accommodations that you're really comfortable with, and like teachers that are assigned to him with the right, like, background and like learnings and stuff. And then the next year, it's almost like, you obviously have some momentum that you built, but at the same time, like, there's more fights to be had and more discussions that have to have. And like, if one parent tried to take that on by themselves,
Can you imagine?
be exhausted. I mean, it's impossible almost. And so that's why, like, once I got on board and understood all the work that Holly had put into everything, you realize like you got to just tag team stuff sometimes too, just because it just requires constant vigilance.
And it brings up a point, Sean, that you mentioned, like women who are single moms or dads who are single dads who don't have a partner have to fight this fight alone. And I always recognize that as perhaps one of the most challenging struggles that anyone could endure, is trying to deal with that. And so it puts the role of being a team, as an important place. And I think by you saying that, it's so true.
That's
So
why
true.
stuff like this is important too, like a resource that somebody that may be on their own realizes, just different perspectives and things to hear just may help other people through the process,
Josh, how about you? How did it go for you?
I mean, a lot of it from the beginning was just behavior issues with Sawyer. We didn't, I think maybe I was ignorant about dyslexia, and I also did the same. I kind of trusted the schools to fix, like thinking that they were doing the right things, that the teachers wanted to help. And I don't think that they necessarily always have the tools to do that. Like maybe they do want to help. I went to the first meeting with Sawyer's teacher and completely listened to everything she said. And I thought that everything was okay. He's just a little bit slow. My wife, Lauren, she started digging into it more and really kind of started getting him testing. I took a while for me to, I guess, get on board. I don't say get on board, but like I kept thinking, oh no, he'll be okay. It's just, it's nothing. I tend to do that. And eventually, she went to her first IEP meeting. I wasn't able to make it because of work. And she, after that meeting, decided and told me, she's like, I need you as support at home. I don't want you going to these meetings because you're going to throat punch somebody. So I ended up kind of being more behind the scenes and trying to take care of Sawyer, I guess psychologically, like developing, understanding things that maybe he couldn't understand, whereas she kind of tackled the front of going after the schools. Ended up with a lot of IEP meetings, some stuff that we had to sign an NDA about. But he's getting taken care of now. She's the loud one. I'm always kind of the mellow, more reserved one. And basically I've taken it to just trying to support her because she's actually taken it upon herself to advocate for a bunch of other children too.
Wow.
So, I pull in the slide.
Yeah,
My wife is texting me now, speaking of support. She was talking about when I think
she's
he was
helping you out.
being bad. She caught him being bad all the time. And I told her that, the kid's just craving attention. Maybe you should try catching him being good. And she started catching the kid, Sawyer, being good, and the behaviors stopped completely. He was just looking for attention. I think he was feeling a little left behind.
Josh, you say a few things that stand out also, I think, that resonate with so many people. First, you said schools with no tools. Here we are, we rely on them, and we think we go through life thinking like the places we go with our institutions, that they've got it. You go to a hospital, they're going to fix you. You go to the police system, they're going to protect you, and the schools are going to educate you. And what you just said is that when it came to our children, they did not have the tools. And so your words actually give them a pass, in a sense. Not that we do give them a pass, but it's like there's their excuse. They don't have the tools. That's not acceptable. That's their excuse. It's sort of like a golf game. It's like we show up, got to have a good excuse to play golf. That's not a good excuse when it comes to our kids. And you talk about them being ignorant, and that is unfortunate. Where are they going to learn? You want them to not have that. Ignorance is not a defense when it comes to our children and their education. And I'm not speaking out of line. I know we all feel that. We all agree with that. And when you talked about the speed of which you got on board, I think that speaks to a lot of men, and it's sort of tough to say when your son is born and you're holding your child and your child is literally minutes old, everything is in front of them and you see it all. It all like comes through your face instantly. My son, the fill in the blank. And that story that we hold our son with has the promise of the entire world, and whatever we do to fill in the blank, that's what it is. And life is actually about stuff being crossed off the list, which, by the way, is okay. We didn't necessarily think that was okay at the beginning. And the fact is that whatever our children become is wonderful and incredible. But we as guys, we don't think like that. We're like, we've got this thing planned out. My son he's gonna be a basketball player. If he wants to be my friend, he's got to do that. I mean, come on. And when Jacob was on the basketball court at the beginning, and I was leaning up against the wall, and I was sitting there. I remember it was in third grade, and I was sitting there watching, and I'm like, oh boy, I don't think this is where he should be, watching him do his thing out there. And that was just one of those moments of truth, and our lives start to change, and we start to realize how absolutely incredible our children are. And it's just not that definition that we hold in our arms when they're born. For me, I'd probably fit the mold of at the beginning. I was like, it was in third grade or second grade, we started to see stuff happening with Jacob. And I was like, listen, Laura, I've got to bust my butt working, and you've got this. Okay. I had no idea like what this was, but it was like, okay, we've got young, whatever, they have these different definitions of like where he fits in. And I'm like, okay, so you've got this, right? And so it was second grade, it was third grade, a couple meetings, I got to work, and I wasn't a part of all that early stuff. And I remember being pulled in. It's like, she's like, you got to come to this meeting. And it was a little bit annoying because it was in the middle of the day. I did not put the importance on it. I didn't even understand it. And she did. And a couple of years go by. And when he transitioned from grammar school to middle school, and you talked about, I think, Josh, somebody mentioned how all these plans were in place, but the following year, everything got thrown away. I forget which one of you guys said that. Fifth grade to sixth grade, that was a freaking disaster because everything went away. There was zero continuity of all the work. Grammar school was actually awesome, and Lauren was hitting it, and it was good, and I was doing my thing as being a part of it. But it blew up in sixth grade, and she couldn't handle that. It actually got really, really bad, and I stepped forward because I needed to be in front, and it became this thing like she actually really couldn't emotionally handle how bad it got. And we took Jacob. It was in December. We pulled him from school. He was in a dangerous situation personally, and with the teachers and with the students. And it was like he wasn't coming out of the bathroom in the morning. He was a behavior problem during the day, and the principal was saying you need to do behavioral therapy, and then you had like professionals saying he needed to be drugged up on different types of drugs and different things. And I was like, hold on. So I stepped forward. And then for the rest of our experience, we actually realized that it was this tag team scenario. Sometimes I couldn't handle it. Sometimes she couldn't handle it. And so that is where the teamwork really came in. And, so I just wanted to say, like, getting to that point is key. Now, so that sort of rounds out that. Any closing comments on that particular topic before we move to the next thought around our kids?
The only thing that was jumping out to me is like one of the crazy things is like there's so many similarities in our experience in dealing with like the school system and like the inertia around like wanting to help the kids and just not having the right, like, I don't know if you want to call it like certifications or awareness about like dyslexia or whatever, but it's like 1 in 5 kids have it. It's not like it's a small population of folks. And it's amazing like how many of the similar stories you hear, like, as you run across the kids that have dyslexia and parents trying to figure it out, and you help them along the way, and all the different school systems that are involved in it and stuff like that. It's a bit amazing to me.
Yeah, and I want to separate myself from the particular diagnosis of dyslexia. Jacob did not have dyslexia. He had, and I guess once you have something, you always have it, like a series of things. It was like a soup of vegetable soup of crap that they would say he's got this and he's got this and he's got this and he's got that. And I'll never forget hearing it, and I was just sort of confused. And the thing I couldn't remember, will never forget is this professional who did all this diagnosing. She said, look, I don't know, college is out of the question. I mean, really getting through school is going to be a challenge. Having friends is going to be your biggest concern, and communicating, is going to be even a bigger concern. Now that right there sort of said, your son is all these things. And so when you hear dyslexia and all of the different issues that are associated with it, or whether there are these other learning issues that are associated with it, I believe that we're all in the same boat. And so, I mean, I'm good. I just wanted to let you know, like, I appreciate the dyslexic journey as much as it's any journey of an individual who has a learning issue. And we're all in the same place with the emotion around parenting. There is I guess I want to mention, let's step outside of the school for a second. Let's go around our homes and like how that experience is in the home. And maybe there could be some conversation around, parenting as a dad, how do we work in the home? And what are our philosophies on managing the relationships? Maybe, well, let's talk about, we have relationships with our child who's got an issue. You've got other children who, if you have other children who don't have particularly or have other issues, and you've got your wife, you've got your spouse. So let's like bang out some thoughts on how do we handle the home environment.
I think one of the things we did initially, and it was funny because we had a difference of opinion, and I don't know if it's men and women or whatever, but Colt got sort of officially diagnosed, and then we started delving into what we wanted to deal with. And I took a more passive role in how like we use that information to parent him. Like, okay, like let's get him the help that he needs, but like don't necessarily need to highlight to him, like let's just sort of shelter him from what's going on, but just get him the help that he needs and whatever. And then Holly took a very different view of it, and she was like, no, like, let's have him own it. Let's explain to him like how his brain works and the beauty that's in his brain. And let's highlight like all the successful people that have a similar diagnosis to his. And I quickly sort of changed my view and aligned myself to the way that she thought. And then when we first started talking about the diagnosis with Colt, it was in a very like beautiful way where we highlighted like, the world needs brains like yours. And like, look at these people that have done like amazing things and accomplished amazing things. Now your journey is probably going to be and feel different and maybe even harder in some respects than some of your peers. But your ability to accomplish things and do things and learn is all there. We just have to, your brain needs to decode things in a different way, but you have this amazing way that you're going to view and see the world. And then Colt took that to a new level, because one of the things like he struggled with initially, because we got like all these accommodations in the IEP and everything felt like really good, but he was getting pulled out of school all the time. So his ability to make relationships with other kids felt constrained and difficult. And then because Holly had that view of really making everything very positive, as Colt was able to like explain to kids what was going on and why his brain was different and why
Wow.
he was getting pulled out. And he would
How
actually,
old was he? How old was he when he was doing that?
so then it was, I think he's 11 now. I think he got diagnosed at like 7. So it was probably like around 8 or 9, but he would do like presentations to the class, like in the beginning of school, to say like, I'm getting pulled out, but here's why I'm getting pulled out. And here's what's going on. Here's how my brain works. And here's all the really cool people that have a brain like mine, you know? And it was, you know, through Holly, like setting that vision and then us talking about it, getting online and stuff like that, that we were able to come up with a game plan and then communicate that with Colt and then sort of take things from there. And then it was also good because he has an older brother that's not dyslexic, and using it as a way to explain things to him as well, you know, so.
How'd the how'd the attention or relationship with his older brother play out during that process of having to put the attention around Colt?
He did a really good job with it. He didn't mind that like there was a lot of attention for him and what Colt was going through, and was really supportive the whole time. So, and we made sure we made like special, like there would be weeks maybe where he didn't get the level of attention that he needed, and we would be cognizant of that and try to make it up at different periods and stuff. But
That's cool.
yeah,
That's good. Louis, Josh, any?
I'll go ahead and second what Sean said. We as a society, we tend to, once we get a diagnosis, we tend to focus on the negatives of that diagnosis. So dyslexia comes with all these hurdles that our kids have to go through. So reading is an issue. Socializing is an issue. Language is an issue. We go to these meetings with their teachers, and we're focusing on the negative. And I think it's very important that we as parents show our kids the positives of being dyslexic and the amazing abilities that they have because of their dyslexia, because they're going to feel the negative at school on a day in, day out basis. They see it. They're very smart. They know that they're struggling to their peers, and they know that they're different. So if they spend 5-6 hours a day at school, 5 days a week, week after week after week, getting that negativity, saying I'm not good enough, I'm not keeping up with my peers. Imagine if they came home and then continue to receive that negativity from us. Well, we have to get you reading at a certain level. We have to, right. You have to work harder to read. From my and when Benjamin was diagnosed, as his dad, I thought that if we only work hard enough, you just have to put in the hours, buckle up, and let's start working hard. And it wasn't a good experience between my son and I. So when I kind of took a position of, well, I'm going to let the schools and my wife fight the educational battle, and I'm going to help where I can with the emotional. And I'm going to make sure that Benjamin knows that he is amazingly bright, may not necessarily be when we think of a student that's being bright and exceptional because they read at a certain level. You're not there, but you have so many other skills, and look what you can do in this area, and look what you can do in that area. So it was very important to me to focus on those areas when we came home.
That's beautiful. You know, hurdles becoming positive. You know, all these hurdles are filling his day, his work day, his school day, and you're trying to create a haven at home. You know, I see that. I totally get that. Josh?
Yeah, I've been much the same way, trying to make a haven for Sawyer when he gets home, because he got a lot of trauma from the teachers expecting him to be a certain way, or maybe he didn't feel smart enough because of his dyslexia. I mean, he ended up getting diagnosed with PTSD when he was in, because of the teachers and trauma, and he was harming himself. He was picking at his nails. His lips he'd come home bleeding on his lips. He's just a ball of nerves. We ended up pulling him from private school because of the PTSD, and ended up pursuing public school, and went to private because of that. And you know, he's been there for a couple of years now. We've seen a lot of, I guess, growth, seeing him being a kid and enjoying being a kid again, because he's around a bunch of kids that are the same as him. You know, we were worried for a little bit because we kind of felt like we were losing our son a little bit to the trauma. You know, he's such a special kid. I mean, it was hard for me for a long time too, to look at him and say, like, you know, he's got an LD or whatever. You know, it's a whole soup of things, like you were saying, like
Right.
dyslexia, dysgraphia, expressive receptive,
Right.
you know, list goes on. You know, every time, like even before this whole Zoom meeting, I'm asking my wife, I'm like, what's everything he has again? Because I never remember it. It's just a list.
Does it really matter?
It doesn't.
words?
It doesn't.
The
Not
words.
to me, but like, it doesn't to
Words.
me. But I was worried I was going to come on here and be like, okay, all these dads are going to know everything, and I'm going to be the clueless guy. So
We
you know,
don't
I've been more
know
emotional support than anything.
anything. We just have a heart, and I can feel yours. I mean, the truth is that, you know, when you're looking at your child and all you see is fear, anxiety, and stress, and you realize that there's nothing they can do when they experience that. They can't do anything at school or at home or with friends, or so their whole world comes to an end when they're filled with fear, anxiety, and stress. Josh, your son had the physical manifestations of what happens during that time. And I know there are lots of parents and family, kids who are dealing with that same thing. And you did, you know, you and I have something in common. I pulled my son out of public school in sixth grade in December with nowhere to go. And he was at the very bottom, same thing as you, very bottom of the spectrum of feeling like anything. He had zero like personal belief in himself and all that, confidence. So we ended up, there was no school that would take him. Every school around, you know, was closed. They were full. So we're like, and it was this real moment where we didn't get a lot of support pulling him out of school. I mean, that sounds sort of radical. And we ended up putting him in a school where it was this tiny little school, and it was, we didn't even care about grades and didn't really care whether it was what was going on. He went to a Hebrew school where half the day they spoke Hebrew. He didn't speak Hebrew. He doesn't know how to read Hebrew or speak Hebrew. It was just a place. It was like 7 kids in the grade. And it was about these, is more important that kids are nice to him than any grade. For that year, he didn't learn a thing. It wasn't, I didn't even care if he didn't have to do any homework. I didn't care about anything. I was only worried about him feeling like a boy, not coming home and freaking out, wanting to go into the classroom. And they treated him so well. They saved his life because and he didn't learn a thing that year. It wasn't about school. So that type of move, Josh, that you did, and then had to advocate and fight and get him into a right place. That's the kind of stuff that goes on out there when nothing is working. And
That's why we moved to North Carolina.
But
That's why we moved to North Carolina, is to get Colt in school. So when COVID hit, like a lot of the teachers that had the certifications, they either got reassigned or they quit. And you know, if you don't nurture the brain when you start that process, you can regress really fast. And so Colt started to lose a lot of the momentum that he had. And we had moved to the Northeast from Florida, and we had looked into a dyslexic specific school in North Carolina when we were there. And when things started to get really bad up there for him, we called that school up and they had a spot, but we had to sort of move right away. And so I talked to my work, and luckily they were super supportive of everything, just considering everything that was going on. But yeah, I mean, and we have a lot of friends that have left states and gone to different states and found different jobs, you know, I mean, it's crazy.
they go where they need to go for the child, and to sort of speak to the family. And I think about, I always say 95-5, 95-5. You guys will get this. My son Jake, whenever he's in the room, and he's probably watching this, and he knows this, he takes up 95% of the air all the time. He's 26 years old. He still takes up 95% of the air. It's a little different now than it was then, but that's what our child does. So now, what about Jake has two siblings? He's got a brother and a sister. And so what do we do in this situation? Well, you know what? They work through this, and let it be known that his sister, she needed attention, and she let us have it when it was time. And his brother, he found a way, the youngest, he found a way to make sure we knew the things that he needed. And I think love is sort of like gas in a room, it fills the room. We will give our children, but they do have to realize, and they do realize, the type of attention that's needed during those tough years. And so along the way, though, I don't know if you've got children, if you want to comment on it. I'll just say that my other two children, they are normal kids who needed just as much attention as anyone. And because we gave Jake 95% during a lot of times, they found a way to get our attention, and we had to find a way to give it to them. How about you guys?
I've been lucky. Well, no, I wouldn't say lucky enough. We haven't dealt with that yet because Sawyer is now 12 and our other kid's 3. So she's fine with whatever.
Well, just prepare. Just get ready.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean,
I too haven't really dealt with that. Benjamin has a younger sister, and she's very supportive of Benjamin as well. So we luckily haven't received that rebellion side of her yet. So, but we are counting the days. I'm sure it's coming.
Let me correct. It's not rebellion that I'm throwing out here, because in a family that's super supportive, and his brother and sister were, it's just as normal kids. Your children are going to need you, and you're always going to be pushing your attention because you have to, and things are going to have to go with your child with a learning disability a certain way. And you'll find the way to be able to give your other children the attention they need, and I do believe that close families, you can avoid the rebellious stage, Lewis. And, some people I'm sure do have issues with that. That's got to be normal in a lot of cases. I didn't experience the rebellion as much as just the kid issues. Sean, how about you?
yeah, no, I mean, Colt's brother, when we were hitting a wall, we obviously made a family decision to make a move. But I mean, he made the ultimate sacrifice. I mean, like, he loved the school that he was at in the Northeast. I mean, he loved his friends. He literally was so excited to go to school every day. And I remember, we're like, okay, we can figure this out. We can get through this, no problem. We picked him up the last day of school before we moved down, because they were in and out of school, but there was a point where they were in school. And literally his whole class was running after the car as we left. And I remember Holly and I looked at each other, we're like, are we going to be able to get through this? Is it going to be, I mean, it was tough, and you're right. We didn't have a roadmap or a game plan. It wasn't okay, let's take care of Colt and get him in this school because that's going to be really great for his development. And then we're going to do X, Y, and Z in order to make sure his older brother Chase is taken care of. We were just we're going to surround him with love, and we're going to put the same amount of effort into finding a school that's good for him, and a full awareness that he's going to take time and need some nurturing and extra love, because he's going to have to find, another circle of friends again, and he's going to have to find his way. And so we put a lot of effort and energy into he loves basketball. So finding once we found a school, okay, well, during the summertime, what is the basketball league that feeds into that school, so we can meet some kids and know people before day one or whatever. It's just small examples like that, though. You find a way to make everybody important. And we found too that it was just communicating as much as you can talk to them and not take one word answers. Really sort of drill down into, okay, like, how are you feeling? Like, he'll always be like, oh, I'm good, everything's good. And we're like, okay, well, why is it good? Like, have you met some people? Have you met some friends? And then sometimes you'll be like, okay, like, it's not that great actually. And here's why it's not great. And then we can say, okay, let's work together to try to figure this out. You know, like, how can we as a parent do things to get you in a position to help streamline things or move things along, you know?
You know, I guess I want to bring up a topic. Had a couple of points here that we can lead into. We all know that kids who have learning issues struggle. And there's a certain propensity of children who have learning issues to end up in trouble as they get older. That's a reality that we're faced with. So when our children are young, and they're facing the issues that they're facing, it has to cross our mind along the way. How do we make sure or lower the chances of our child getting involved with, you know, drugs, alcohol, things that really get them in trouble? That's a real challenge that we're facing as parents. And, you know, so my son being 26, he's been through a lot of the years where he could have gone down the road of having a real problem, you know, and I wanted to make sure to hear about your thoughts around how do you think about giving your kids more of that, you know, that path towards something that's super positive. Have you thought about that as we go down the road?
I mean, I've thought about it. You know, actually just a couple of weeks ago, we lost a friend to drugs. That was a dyslexic child, didn't get support. And we've tried to give Sawyer as much support as we can, hoping that he feels like he doesn't need to turn to something like that. You know, I know it's a possibility, and I try to, I don't know, educate him, tell him about it, because we've had family members that have struggled with it. And my computer just went off. Wait, there we go. Sorry.
I see you, Josh.
Okay, my whole screen went dark for a second. Yeah, but I mean, you know, give him support and try to make sure that he feels, I don't know, like he's getting everything he needs as much as we can. I mean, that's really all I got to say. Anybody else?
Yeah, I agree that I agree with that as well. There's no roadmap to use. There's no one set of rules that we must follow. We kind of try our best to support them as much as possible, and hope that what we do is going to help them out, and they'll become successful and contribute to society in their own way. And they have the abilities to do that. And it's important that they realize and know that they have the abilities to do that.
Good point. Really good point.
I think kids just anymore these days are so exposed to everything. I'm sure every generation of parent feels the same way, but it's like, you know, my wife and I say all the time, you kind of lose your innocence like pretty early these days, just through like, you know, phones and TV or whatever it is. I mean, I think you just like, I find that you have conversations a lot earlier than I remember having them, like when we were growing up. And that's just one of the things that we've done, is you just have conversations about things early. Like, why do people turn to drugs, and what do they do, and why do you want to avoid those situations, and what does it feel like, you know, it's just sort of conceptually, if you're at a party and you want to make friends with people and that situation comes up, like, what are ways that you can deal with it, and try to like create scenarios that you can talk to about them, about, you know, some of those tougher subjects. And we just hope through loving them and trying to get them in a positive environment like you guys are talking about as you can, and then having awareness about things for when those moments come up and you're not there, that you hope that you built that strength up for them to be able to navigate it.
And every one of our kids has some sort of like love, we call it a superpower. It's like, what is it that they gravitate towards? What is it that makes them special? Can you talk about your kids, about their superpower? Like the thing that they gravitate, it could be anything, you know. Jacob loves piano, or he did triathlon stuff, or different things like that. Anything out there that you feel your children, and by the way, that's the stuff that helps them stay away from getting into trouble, when they love something and they just do it, and we support that. Anything out there that you've seen with your children?
I mean, Sawyer's got the biggest heart of any person I've ever met. I remember taking him out when he was 8 years old for Halloween trick-or-treating, and he wanted to get home early because he wanted to give his candy out to the trick-or-treaters, you know. And it's just, he amazes me constantly, the compassion that the child has. Other than that, I mean, I guess his talent's video games, because that's all he ever does.
That's good talent. Yeah. Any other superpowers that you do with their kids? Go ahead.
I would say my son is really strong in the arts, but he too is very, very connected to other people's emotions, and I think he really feels other people's emotions. So I think he's really able to connect at that level, and but I think a lot of dyslexics have these superpowers that they may not necessarily know they have them yet. It's important to try to have them find their special ability, and once we find it, I mean, they are passionate, they are all in it, and want to do as much as possible. So yeah, it's important to find their superpower as much as possible.
And as a dad, then we support that no matter what it is. You know, it's like we've got to really lean in and give them that opportunity to run in that direction, you know, because they need that. And I think having it's interesting, their compassion towards others. I mean, they're exposed to a lot of pain, and maybe that helps them get that. You know?
Yeah, Sawyer actually, he had a goal that he had to write for a school meeting, and one of his meetings was he wanted to be friends with everyone because he didn't want anyone to feel lonely. And I think that's probably from how he felt, you know.
I think it's like you said too, David, in the beginning, it's like the strength as a parent or a father or whatever, to not like try to impart your definition of what you wanted them to be into what they find energy and what they get strength out of, you know, because I was guilty of that too. Like when the boys were younger, and then you realize like even the siblings are so different, you know, one from the other. And it's like giving them the space and freedom to find those superpowers and being cool. Like if it evolves, you know, from 1 year or one moment to the next, and embracing like all the experiences and moments that they can get out of things is beautiful. And Colt was the same way. I mean, like he just has a great heart. Like he has this amazing power to speak in front of people, and like he's always had it. Like you know, when he was really young, like he could get in front of huge groups and just own a microphone. And so like he did acting for a little bit, and then it was very intense and tiring. And so like he's transitioned into getting in the water quite a bit. We live near the ocean, so he's learning how to surf, and he's on a dive team and does swimming. But you know, one of the things I was really proud of him for is like when he started getting pulled out for the IEP stuff, he got bullied. There was one kid in particular it was emotionally like really tough for him, and trying to give him the skill set to deal with it and make sure the school was understanding of what was going on and supporting them. And then we finally got the situation rectified. And then a month later he came home and he was like, yeah, they got me on this like lunch group for kids that like don't treat other kids right. I try to help them understand like how that's received and how they can do better. And it was taking that superpower that he had as being able to speak to people and talk objectively and stuff, and use it for good. And he's really good about trying to find stuff like that. It's pretty awesome.
If you think about it, do you know there was this poll, and people said people were more afraid of public speaking than they were of death.
Yeah.
So, you know,
I'm horrible at that.
So people would rather be in the casket than give the eulogy. It's like you talk about how people want to be. It's like, so your son has something really special, you know, being so willing to jump out there and to be putting themselves out. And so here we are, like we're adults, we're dads, you know, we are we are supposed to have it all, but yet, you know, we realized in this conversation that, man, we were like trying to figure it out as we went. So if you were sitting here now talking to yourself, or, you know, your younger self who before you had any children, and you were to try to give yourself some guidance, and maybe it's guidance to the dads out there. This is going to be a two-part question. Number one, what would you say to yourself? And number two, what would you say to your wife about a dad, about yourself, about being a dad in this situation? So one is, what would you say to yourself, and what would you say to your wife?
I think the first thing like I would say to myself is like, don't be so arrogant to think that you're gonna fix everything right away. Like you said, like lean in and learn and be flexible and understanding throughout the process, because it's not going to be something that like you can solve with a phone call or an email or something that can necessarily happen right away. Like sometimes, like, you know, you want these like instant results and move on to the next problem, and like what else is going on and what else can I help with, solve, or whatever. And things like this, like it doesn't work like that. Like you just need to educate yourself as much as you can and embrace the process and know that it's going to be work. And so, you know, what I would say to my wife, as you have that reflection and that understanding, is that like, I'm here for you and I want to work together to figure this out. And our power as a team is unstoppable, really. And it's through that awareness and helping each other out and communicating when you're tired or when I'm tired, and how can we navigate these situations or things that come up together. It's really a way to, you know, take this process that can be draining and use it as a means to get closer to one another as well.
I love that. That's really well said. That's really well said. Guys?
I would say that don't try to solve the problem. We as dads, or we as men, we really see a problem in hand and we want to try to find a solution and solve it. And like Sean said, go on to the next problem. But dyslexia is not something that we can solve. And when I realized that I wasn't going to fix the problem and maybe not going to resolve the problem by working hard, and I realized that my part in this journey is to support and do my best with my capabilities to do that. So, which is a big change or difference in what I'm used to in my regular life, is just trying to solve the problem and then moving on. But or maybe not even thinking of it as a problem. Maybe, you know, just abilities that are not your everyday abilities, and then maybe just focus on those different abilities and make sure that they know that they can thrive with those.
How about to your wife at the beginning of this journey?
She was the rock of the family. She was absolutely the rock, and she was able to take all to manage his education, to fight. She knew who to fight with and how to fight, and really, I rode her coattails, and I just went for the ride, and I tried to absorb and learn as much as possible along the way, and try to support her in the fight that we were facing. But absolutely, I give her full credit for what she has done and what we have gone through as a family. So maybe 99% of the work is on her, was on her shoulders, and I supported where I could.
That's well said.
I think I'd probably tell myself to maybe question things more. Don't think that, like, I don't know, sometimes I feel like maybe I hindered the process just because I trusted people to have my kids' best interests at heart. And I don't, maybe I shouldn't have done that. I don't know. I question it, but then again, like at the same time, I tell my wife all the time, like, you can't beat yourself up for not knowing soon enough.
Right.
So I don't know, maybe I tell myself something along those lines. I mean, that's
Yep.
kind of neither here nor there. I think my wife, I would tell listen to your instincts. Don't always listen to your husband. When you say things are going to be fine, maybe just go for it. I mean, she has now.
Those the instincts of our wives is just, you just nailed it, Josh. They've got it. They know things. I want to end with one question, because I've had this reflection being where I'm sitting, and I see you guys with your children. They're younger than my child who's gone through it, and Jake has taken, and I'm so proud of him, he's taken to helping kids who learn differently transition, and he actually has started a consulting company, and he mentors children just who are in the same spots that your children are in, and it's amazing to see. And he's had his rough spots. He's fallen, he's gotten up. I've spent a lot of time saving him. Lauren and I, that was our mission. It sounds, come on guys, this is like what our mission is. We want to save our children. And when our child with learning issue is struggling, we step in, and that's what we want to do. So I've spent his life doing that. So my question to you, as you're at this point, and where do you see the difference between saving and letting our children fall and learn? The falling and learning versus jumping in and saving. What's your philosophies on that thing that we deal with as parents?
I mean, for me, like, I see it as levels. I think that there are bits that, like, as a parent, I think in our situations with learning differences that you have an obligation to influence. So, like, they need certain accommodations, and they need certain things, teachers with certain credentials, in order to make sure that they're taught in a way that their brain can digest it and decode things in the way that they need to. And then there's just, once you get those things in place, there's natural evolution and failure and things that go throughout the education process, and the life process, I mean, it can be sports or school or whatever. And those situations, like, once you've got them in a position to succeed, then, they need to learn through failure as well. So, I think that there's a balance where you can't step in and do everything for them. They got to get good grades or get bad grades. And what do they learn from that experience? And then, but if they're in a position where they're enabled to succeed, then let the process sort of flow from there, I think.
That's a good answer, guys.
We want to protect our kids against pain, against failure. We cast a big net under them, and we want to be there for them, every time that they experience failure. It's normal. But they're going to have experiences in their life where we're not going to be there to cast that net. And they're going to learn probably more from those experiences than the times when we are there just to catch them. But catching them is okay too. Helping them not face that pain is okay too. And I guess every situation is going to be different. And we're always learning, should I have helped out in that situation, or shouldn't I? Should he have learned a life lesson in that situation? I don't know. I don't think there is a right or wrong answer there. We try our best to support and be there for our kids when they feel pain, and we do our best. We're not perfect. We're human. So
Nicely said, Louis. Well put.
I just try to, I don't know, be a happy place for Sawyer. We try to keep as much in touch with the school, and as we can nowadays. We work as a team. We've been the private school that Sawyer's in's actually been great for that. Small classes. I mean, I don't know. We joke a lot. We try to. I try to let him know it's okay to make mistakes. That he doesn't have to be perfect in everything. Even though he wants to, he's always asking me, like, "Dad, are you proud of me? Dad, are you proud of me?" And I told him, like, even when you fail, like, I'm proud of you, man. Like, you're doing everything you can.
Great.
I don't know.
No, that's great. And we're facing that stuff all the time. It's stuff that it really doesn't change. So let's, I think in closing, I think we maybe each can throw out either a message, a thought, a final closing point that you may want to make. And then we'll turn it back to Ashley, or I think we're supposed to close out. I don't know exactly what to do at the end, but what we'll do is we'll each have a closing comment, and then we'll go off the Zoom call and we'll be done. But I have to tell you, just before we start this last part, I've gotten to hear from you, and I realize I've never met you, but I feel like we've been through the same thing. Literally, I know you guys. I know what you're feeling, and it feels sort of good to hear something so similar and so familiar to me. A lot of times we seem to feel like we're alone in this thing, whereas we're just not. We could be literally in other states, other countries, and we're experiencing the same, frustrations and also, victories, and as we go through it together. So I've really appreciated learning about you guys and your experiences. So before we start our final stuff, I just wanted to thank you all. It's good stuff. All right, guys, who wants to jump? Who wants to start?
Yeah, I can start. I mean, I guess I'd start by thanking you, David, for moderating this. I think you did an awesome job of really helping us like flow through the topics of conversation. And I agree. Like I felt like I know you guys, even though it's the first time we've met or talked. I mean, these similar experiences have a way of drawing you in, and really, it's amazing how the power of the similar situation like resonates, and you get comfort in that. I don't know. I mean, for a final message, I would just say like, it all starts with love and caring. And I think most parents have that, and it can be frustrating, like when you're trying to figure these things out when your kids and they have learning differences, and the focus on love, and that you're going to get through it, and you just got to take some time and figure things out and trust your gut and your instincts. Like when you think something is just off slightly, it's just trying to figure it out and work slowly through the process, and love everybody along the way. And you're going to figure it out. And then once you do hone in on if there is a difference, that there are a ton of resources out there to help educate you and help with advocacy or with whatever, and really finding those. And there's amazing foundations, and like we've found so many amazing people like through this journey and process, and there's strength in that, and seeking those things out to help where you don't feel like you're alone through the process is really important.
Love that. Well said.
There's a huge community of us. Like we said earlier, it's 1 in 5 kids who have dyslexia. It's a huge community that I'm sure before we were all involved in this community, we didn't know much about it, and we didn't even know that the community existed. But we are there, and we are supporting each other. And there is a lot of resources, like Sean said. There's a lot of resources out there that you can use, and speak with others who have gone through the same situation, and they can help with your situation. So don't be scared to open up and speak and talk about your experiences. And events like this will help others. I'm sure there are many dads and moms who are watching right now who are beginning their journey through this, and for them to know that they are not alone, And there's a lot of people out there that they can reach out to for information and just for emotional support, or just for, I'm going through this small situation. How do I, what should I be doing? And getting some feedback on that is enormous for them. So just continue down the process and help others is key. I would say that.
I think, you don't always have to be the one that knows everything. Sometimes you can be a spouse like me, where I'm just like filling in where I can to help support my wife, because she's the one that knows just about everything. She knows more than most people know about anything, honestly. It's okay to be that person that's just a support. It's like, I don't know, advocacy, like I advocate by spreading awareness. Like I work in an artistic area, and I can't tell you how many people are like, oh yeah, I'm dyslexic. Just about everybody in my art studio is. I talk to people all the time about how many kids need help. I don't know. I guess I've always felt like in the shadow of my wife, because she's so awesome at it. But I mean, that's okay. I guess that would be my thought. I got a crazy little daughter coming down here. But that's really, I guess, all I have to say.
So I would say that every year
Okay.
that we went through this journey, I thought it was over.
Okay.
Every year, what worked last year didn't work this year. And we kept finding ways to do it and to keep going. And each child, each one of our children, they have superpowers. And if you lean into those in the darkest times, you will be able to rise out into the light. Because all of the stuff that really pulls us all down can be lifted up by those children and the things that they love and the things that make them smile and laugh and that they enjoy. So during the toughest times, lean into those superpowers and work together with your wife, work together with your spouse, with your family, with your siblings, and realize that it's a journey that as long as you do it together, you can absolutely get through everything and anything. And dads, the dads that need support should get support, but also realize that we stand on the shoulders of giants, and those are our wives. They're the ones that carry the load, and we do the best we can to keep up. And that's how it always is. That's the way it needs to be, and that's been fantastic. So, I want to thank everybody, this entire community, for this whole experience of doing this. It was an invitation that I was excited to do, and you guys were great. I love doing it with you guys. We've learned a lot today, and hey, thanks. I hope to do it again soon. Take care.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.
Great job, David.
Thank you. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, guys.